Hey, I'm Father Roderick. I'm a priest. I'm a geek. I'm also a published author. This is a book about my life as a media priest. It's written in Dutch. There is also an English version that I'm currently re-editing. But there is one book that I have not written and that I've been wanting to write ever since I was a child, sitting in my local library, reading The Lord of the Rings, reading Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and all those wonderful imaginative books that I loved as a child. And that is my own fantasy novel. And today is the first day of the year, and I've decided to share my journey with you, the journey towards writing my first fantasy novel. All right, so how did I start on this first day of the new year? Well, first of all, I knew that if this book gets made, it can only be in one way, and that is if I establish a daily writing routine. This is how I wrote my other books. It was just churning out the words. Writing, even if you don't feel like writing. And that's hard. That is very hard. And maybe one of the reasons that I have not yet started my fantasy novel up until this moment was just this kind of fear of the blank page and the unknown, and also imposter syndrome. Who am I to write a fantasy novel? It's such a crowded market. There's so many other writers. But once I started to ask that to the fantasy authors that I met, they all told me, you know what, don't write because you want to be the next Tolkien or C.S. Lewis or, whoever you admire. Write because there's a story inside of you that needs to get out. Write because you need to be a writer. It's something you do because you love it. It makes you happy. And only if it only finds one reader who loves what you write and who you make happy as well by sharing your story, you already have succeeded. And so it was a huge encouragement to just start, and also to acknowledge that it's more about writing the words, getting the story out, and then worry about how can I improve this, and maybe how can this find an audience. But it's no use thinking about finding an audience, promoting a book, or whatever, dreams of being a successful author, if that story is not on paper first. So that routine is the first challenge. And I've been thinking, how can I do that? Because I have a very busy life. I produce a lot of content. I work for TV. I do lots of social media stuff. I create courses. I do coaching. And I'm a priest, so I also work in a parish. How can I possibly find a time every single day? And I think that for me, what works well is if it's the first thing I do every day. And to be without compromise. So ideally, of course, I would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, say my prayers, and then sit down with a cup of coffee and write for 2 hours, right? Or 4. But I know myself, especially at the beginning of this year, I just don't have the energy. I need my sleep as well. But I do know that if I take only 1 hour at the start of my day, and it doesn't matter if I begin at 6, maybe I'll get there over time, or if I start at 9, like today, that 1 hour is something I can always miss. Even if I have a lot of other work tends to fill the space that you give it, right? So if I take 1 hour to just start writing, and then I'll just do all the other work in the remaining time, I think I'll be fine, but at least it will be done. And it's similar to like workouts and running. I always do that in the morning because if I schedule it in the evening or in the late afternoon, there are always reasons to skip it. And for this project to succeed, I need to have that daily consistency. So finally, what did I write on this first day? Well, I started very simple. I wrote down the outline of the story that I have in my mind. It's a bit too much to share with you here in this video, but I will over time share with you the elements of the story. So I wrote down kind of like in a few phrases, this is the story that has been in here for so long. This is the main character. This is the nemesis. And I want these story beats. It's like basically this is the call to action, or the what is it, the incident that puts everything in motion. This is where everything starts to go wrong, and this is kind of how I envision the ending, but I'm not sure yet. It's kind of pretty vague, but I have an idea. And that was it. And then time was over because I spent so much time creating that background. But at least I got that on paper. So that's the first step. I have words on paper, well, on screen. Tomorrow, I'm going to continue to do this, knowing that at least having a general framework of the story I want to write is helping me. Not everyone writes like that, but I like to have at least a semblance of an overall structure, also to prevent me from investing a lot of time in writing stuff that later on I have to discard. I kind of like, it's like cooking. I like to have a general recipe, so I know what the end result more or less has to be in the various steps. But when I'm cooking, I forget about the rules and I just follow my inspiration. Thanks for watching, and follow for more.